Today's lecture is the Daphne Harrison Lecture, named after Professor Emerita Dr. Daphne Harrison, former chair of the Department of Africana Studies and the founding director of the Humanities Scholars Program and UMBC's Center for the Humanities, what is now the Drescher Center for the Humanities. Daphne Harrison came to UMBC in 1972 as an associate professor of Africana Studies. In addition to her work as a teacher, during which she spearheaded a 2-year effort by UMBC and Baltimore school teachers to seriously discuss racism, she also acted as founding director of UMBC's Center for the Humanities until her retirement in 1999. A scholar of music, she has published a number of articles about the blues and has written a book entitled Black Pearls, Blues Queens of the 1920s. As a professor and faculty colleague, Harrison worked creatively with many departments and campus groups, including Gender and Women Studies, the Music Department, the Meyerhoff Scholarship Program, and others. I love teaching and enjoy challenging students to be imaginative, to take risks, to stand up for what is right regardless of peer pressure, she said. As a result, I fell in love with every new group of students that walked into my classroom. As the first director of the Center for the Humanities, she worked tirelessly to recruit faculty to teach the Humanities Scholars seminars and to mentor both the scholars and their professors while inviting challenging speakers to campus for the Humanities Forum lecture series. And as director of the Drescher Center for the Humanities, I feel as though I'm standing on very broad shoulders. Dr. Harrison is with us this afternoon, and I'd like to ask her to stand so we can acknowledge her.
You're beautiful, and I hope you're happy that you are doing what you're doing. Because always the humanities were the last thing to get thought about when I first started teaching here. And here you are, my beautifuls.
Hi, I'm Carol Hess, chair of the dance department, and this event is part of the Humanities Forum series of events. I encourage you to take a look at the website, the Drescher Center website, dreschercenter.umbc.edu, and find out about the next events that are going on. There's one next week, Wednesday, April 13th at 7 p.m. in this building, room 132. And it's titled, Can a Comic Book Superhero and Rape Survivor Change Attitudes Towards Sexual Violence? Given by Ram Devineni, filmmaker, publisher, and founder of Radipalax Publishing and Film Production Company. Today we are going to have a lecture demonstration. So the first part will be a lecture. There'll be a short interactive break. There are papers around your seats for a reason, you'll find out. And after that little interactive break, there'll be some dancing. You'll see the dances. And we'll have a chance to ask questions. So I'd like to introduce Breai Mason-Campbell. She's a Baltimore native, teacher, dancer, cultural counselor. A Harvard graduate, Breai's scholarship explores the role of secular art as a religious and moral touchstone for African American people. Breai has worked as an educator and administrator for New Song Community Learning Center in Sandtown since 2002. As her methodology for social change, she has written and implemented comprehensive arts integration curricula, including The Corner and The Colony, which uses photo essays to draw correlations between the European colonization of North America and the occupation of street corners by drug dealers and Roots and Remixes, which engages youth in describing what it means to be African American to the world through video. Her work has been supported by grants from Teaching Tolerance and the Frankie Manning Foundation, which named her a cultural ambassador in 2014. A steward of Black vernacular movement, Breai has directed and performed at the Reginald F. Lewis Museum, the Baltimore Museum of Art, the Mechanic Theater, and the Hippodrome. Her latest work, Dancing White, asks through lecture and performance whether the primal, unencumbered freedom of movement is limited by the color of a body due to racial politics. Breai is a wife and the mother of two. And without further ado.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much. Well, good evening. Thank you. My children are here, and my husband. I'm sorry, we always forget the husbands. But the youngest among us, Mason, you want to say hi? Azura, do you want to say hi? Nah. She's like, I'm 3. I'm here. That's enough. It's like, you told me there'd be snacks. Where are the snacks? Contradictions. Their evaluation invites us to a deeper understanding of our social, political, and spiritual worlds. For instance, what system of logic at once elevates a Black man to the archetype of physical power, strength, agility, and celebrity, right? Because that means we like you, you're a celebrity, while at the same time simultaneously relegating him to a cultural pigeonhole so narrow, debased, and deep that Harvard professor Henry Louis Gates is arrested in his own home, thought to be a burglar, and a 12-year-old boy is shot for holding a toy. Not shot, murdered for holding a toy. How can we have a Black president at the height of a need for a Black Lives Matter movement? How can Donald Sterling see Black men's value as commodities but not comrades? How can we be both the hero and the villain? Contradictions. Now, before we go any further, I want to talk to you about my favorite article from last year. There was an article, it's actually not from last year, it was published in 2012, but I just discovered it last year. It was about calling in. And the transgendered person who wrote the article was talking about a conference that took place here in Baltimore, actually, and it was about rights for queer and transgendered people of color. And the article was about how violent that conference was. It was about how much punitive actions there were between the people there. Lots of kind of shaming and blaming and punishing people for not using just the right words, for not having the right politics, for maybe using the wrong pronoun or something. And the article really asked us to stop and think, if we're all gathered here to talk about something, that means that we're interested in seeing it improve. So how about instead of calling everybody out for everything they do wrong, we start to call each other in? So this is me calling all of us in. I'll make mistakes. There's places I am in my thinking today that I wasn't, 15, 20 years ago when I started this. I found an article that I wrote to my high school newspaper, the Calumet at Woodlawn High School, now famous from the Serial series. And I realized I've been talking about race and what we need to do to kind of recover from where we are since I was 15 years old. But that 15-year-old is not the same as this 30-year-old. And I imagine that when I'm, 60, I'll have something different to say. When I'm wrong, call me in. If you feel like things I say make you feel defensive, remember you were called in this space. I'm not here. Of course, when there's oppression, we need to call it out. But let's make this a space for calling in. So by show of hands, who knows who the person photographed here is? You can't see it? Oh, do we have? You see somebody, but we don't know who that is. Okay, so somebody who's got their hand up, his or her hand up. Tell me, who is that person? Cam Newton. Boom. Extra point. Ready? Bonus round. Raise your hand if you know what Cam Newton is doing. Oh, okay. Oh, I heard it. What's he do? Oh, you knew what he was doing? Okay. Sorry. My brother's like, yes, say it louder. What's he doing? Dabbing. Okay, what is dabbing? Somebody's going to have to stand up and tell us. Oh, my son knows what what's dabbing, Mason? It's like this. And a demonstration, lecture demonstration, and it continues. Who can tell us a little bit more about what's a dab? What's dabbing? Anybody want to say more about it? Okay, what's dabbing? Is it a drug reference? Dun, dun, dun. Okay, we've heard that it's a drug reference. What else is it? It's a dance move. It's a crazy dance move. It's a drug reference. It's like this. Show me again, Mason. Right. Okay. So this year's Super Bowl was a moment in Black history that I might have missed had it not been for Cam Newton's dancing. He was to be the first Black quarterback to have won a Heisman and an NCAA championship and a Super Bowl as a starter. And the reason I kind of turned my attention to it because I'd known that Black quarterback was kind of thought stereotypically to be an oxymoron because the quarterback is the leader, which kind of stereotypically the Black man can't be. He's the thinker on the field, which stereotypically the Black man can't be. You know, we've got the body for the sport, but not the brain. That's the stereotype. So already I'm looking at Cam Newton because he's, you know, breaking these stereotypes. But in Cam's case, these kind of attacks on his competence came in the form of criticism of his end zone dances. The rhetoric around the description of his end zone dances was so antebellum, so hearkening back to slavocracy that my jaw dropped. Okay, so this is an excerpt from a letter that a now famous letter that a mother wrote that was published in the paper. She wrote, because of where we sat, we had a close-up view of your conduct in the fourth quarter. The chest puffs, the pelvic thrusts, the arrogant struts, we saw it all. My daughter started asking questions. Won't he get in trouble for doing that? Is he trying to make people mad? Do you think he knows he looks like a spoiled brat? So I started ravenously reading articles about Cam Newton because I'm hooked now, right? And so much of this rhetoric was not just specific to this letter. This letter wasn't an outlier. It was a kind of archetype of a type of discussion around Cam Newton. So the tone and tenor of the conversation was so riddled with Jim Crow era vernacular that its import went well beyond sports competitiveness. And instead it started to provide a window into the festering, unresolved concerns about race and race relations that are maybe taboo in politically correct conversation, but not banished from our hearts or imaginations if our current political state has told us nothing. We're surprised by the things that have entered back into conversation. So I want to show you Cam dabbing. I want to alert you, cover the children's ears.
Look at my dab. Get in there, get in there. Get me dabbing your recession gear. Looking like I'm not from around here. Your nigga dabbing not the atmosphere. You niggas still saying swag. My niggas switched it up, we call it dab. Step out with her like that, I call it a jab. Michael Jordan, I'm perfecting my crown. I'm on the counter, counting it up with my hands. Your nigga, I can show you how to do math. Sipping on drinking, I pour some money. My nigga not trying to remember my past. Look to my hood if you ain't got a pass. Eat at that deal, I look Winnie and crime. Mr. McMahon, I find you in your style. Watching you nigga dabbing made me laugh. Dabbing is a way of fashion. Tucked out like I'm taking McFadden. On the pen like I'm taking John Madden. She get a platinum plaque for all this dab. You niggas should get a Grammy where you act. Enough for that swag, I put it in the cash. Look at my debut.
So clearly this is a highlight reel. It's not like every time Cam has a touchdown, the music magically just starts playing. But I played it with the music because I think it's important to understand that for some people, when they see the dance, they're thinking that there's a song that goes with it as well. Maybe some people just see the movement and it's separate from the song. But I want us to have a kind of nuanced understanding, a perspective about what, you know, dabbing is. So you hear the song and you've seen the movement now. So the issue here, the contradiction, because remember we were talking about contradictions, is deeper than a question of Cam's ability to be an all-ages role model while publicly referencing arguably adult topics. I asked for my kids' ears to be covered. I don't know how I'm feeling about the M word. I go back and forth. But there's also this.
You can fix your hair like this, and then you can dab. And then this is where you can sign a bill, and then you dab. That's it. Dab. That's all. All you gotta remember is just sign something and be like, dab. That's it.
Okay, we got it.
So, how can the same dance, which elevates one person to cultural relevance, condemn another to cultural inferiority? We have to look at the contradictions if we want to move forward. So the Washington Post Cindy Boren attempts to make sense of it by comparing her own thoughts to those of ESPN sports analyst Ryan Clark. And this is what came out of that. Newton is clearly being held to a different, higher standard, and one easy explanation is that he is black. But ESPN's Clark traces this dislike to Newton to culture, not race. He isn't disliked because he's brown-skinned, he's disliked because it's culturally hard to understand for most people, he said. Russell Wilson is a brown quarterback, but Russell Wilson's culture is easier to understand. Russell Wilson doesn't dance. Russell Wilson doesn't have the hip-hop culture. Young Jeezy and Future aren't going to Russell Wilson's games. So for the Caucasian fan, for the fan who doesn't understand the culture, Cam Newton's culture is too young hip-hop, too young brown. There it is, the contradiction we have not dealt with here in Baltimore. The door to the future of our lives together in this city, in this country, culture. During the riots last April, language flooded our public discourse that provides a clue to our problems with culture. Thugs, packs, animals. Those words were used to describe the people who took to the streets. Thugs, packs, animals. It's not their color, those comments seem to say. It's the way they behave that gets them into trouble. At the same time, there were conversations about the hardships that people face due to their color that has nothing to do with how they behave, that anyone, anywhere could be the victim of violence, could die, could lose their life, as Ta-Nehisi Coates says, could have their body taken just for the color of their skin. There were solidarity marches, vigils, calls for reparations, conversations and lectures like this one. Here, 1 year later, and still waiting for the other shoe to drop, we find ourselves at a precipice. Catastrophe has once again moved racial injustice toward the center of our collective concern. In the 60s, public outcry over racial injustice led to legislative action, the Equal Employment Opportunities Act, laws about integration of schools, voting rights. Likewise, our city, Baltimore, has begun to address what we've called the unrest. That's what we're calling it. We've begun to address the unrest with policies aimed at increasing police accountability like body cameras. What laws do not change, however, is the way that we feel about one another. Laws do not change our visceral reactions. Visceral is, I see a spider, I step on it before I've even thought, oh no, wait. That spider does some work in my house, right? I've got these ants and maybe that spider could have helped, but it's too late now. Visceral reaction, how you respond. Laws don't change that. Laws don't regulate our vulnerability, our willingness to get closer to one another. We make segregation illegal, but there are no white children at the school where I teach. It's all black kids. There's all these pockets around the city where there's these kind of enclaves that people will go to make a choice to be at a school where people look like them phenotypically. Despite the law. Vision. That's another thing that the law can't really do. The law can't really give us a vision of the incremental steps that we need to take to really make a change. Our task today, therefore, is to consider how arts education and arts experiences are strategically poised to grapple with these three issues of the visceral response, of our willingness to be vulnerable, of our vision for the future, in order to combat the further deterioration of race relations and to advance the achievement of social justice in Baltimore and beyond. Why? Because the artist's special gift is to touch the heart. And that's where any real change happens anyway. So let's begin with the discussion of the visceral. So in the court transcript from Darren Wilson, when he was asked about why he killed an unarmed black man, Michael Brown, he had this to say. He said, Michael Brown had the most aggressive face. That's the only way I can describe it. It looks like a demon. That's how angry he looked. He also called him a black brute. So in my reading this year, something else that I was really struck by was the science of discrimination. I kept reading all these articles that were talking about like phenology. Like my children are born into my home, they see other brown people, they learn in this kind of animalistic way that this is your in-group, this is who you trust, and that by the time they're 6 months old, they've decided who's in the group and who's out. That it's like natural to have a sense of an in-group and an out-group, and that you will perceive some people as outside of your group and thereby a threat. I read so many articles about this, about how police officers really couldn't tell black people apart, and it was just natural. It's because the eye wasn't trained to see differences. Because when you see people from different ethnic groups, if that's not your ethnic group and you haven't been exposed to a lot of their faces, then maybe that's why so much science of the natural causes of the injustice that we're seeing. I think that science is really dangerous, but I have seen some science that I think is helpful and really wants to take next steps toward not just naming a problem, but saying, well, what do we do about it? How do we go forward to resolve it? So I have this quote, and it's long, but it was like a 40-page document, and this was the summary. And as much as I tried to take something away, I really think that we need to read all this together. So bear with me. The social category children defines a group of individuals who are perceived to be distinct with essential characteristics including innocence and the need for protection. The present research examined whether black boys are given the protections of childhood equally to their white peers. We tested 3 hypotheses. A, that black boys are seen as less childlike than their white peers. B, that the characteristics associated with childhood will be applied less when thinking specifically about black boys relative to white boys. And C, that these trends would be exacerbated in contexts where black males are dehumanized by associating them with apes. We expected, derivative of these 3 principal hypotheses, that individuals would perceive black boys as being more responsible for their actions and as being more appropriate targets for police violence. We find support for these hypotheses across 4 studies using laboratory, field, and translational methods. We find converging evidence that black boys are seen as older and less innocent, and that they prompt a less essential conception of childhood than do their white same-age peers. Further, our findings demonstrate that the Black Ape Association predicted actual racial disparities and police violence toward children. These data represent the first attitude-behavior matching of its kind in a policing context. Taken together, this research suggests that dehumanization is a uniquely dangerous intergroup attitude, that intergroup perception of children is underexplored, and that both topics should be research priorities. Dehumanization. So when I read that, I thought, my first thought was slavery. That was my first thought. And I know it's so gauche to mention slavery in 2016. Because, oh, we have a black president. How could anything from slavery still be relevant? Contradictions. Look at them. Remember? You could be Cam Newton, but still the villain. You can have a black president, and still Black Lives Matter. It can be 2016, and we still have issues from 1619. Because dehumanization is about, oh, you know, you've got a litter of puppies, you bred puppies, cool, sell them because you know what, the dog doesn't care, right? We're not afraid that the dog's going to miss her puppies. We'll take these people and sell their children. You know what? Because we don't really believe that they have the human capacity to miss them. Dehumanization, that was the first thought that I had when I read this. We have these unresolved issues that we're not getting at. We're still dehumanizing black children and thinking that they look like apes and monkeys. And because they look like apes and monkeys in our minds and our visceral reaction, we treat them like we would treat an animal. Ooh. Something unwanted, something that was a pest. Just react first before you investigate more. You know, my dad kills every spider. I'm like, not every spider is poisonous. He just kills every spider. Because you know what? He's above it. He doesn't need to investigate more. We need to look at this. So we need to think about what's propping this up in our society. What's propping up in our society, our relationships, and in our own minds, the dehumanization of black people. So I thought about this book that I read. It's called Poetic Justice. And I really think the author, anybody familiar with this text? So I thought what the author was trying to do, Martha Nussbaum, she was concerned about the over-incarceration of African-American males. So she was thinking, okay, the reason that you're over-incarcerated, one of the reasons is because you're not being judged by a jury of your peers. People come in there to give you a so-called, fair trial, but they don't understand you. So what she recommended was that people read books to understand other people. And this resonated with me. I remember this book, Bastard Out of Carolina. Has anyone ever read this? Bastard Out of Carolina? Just us? Okay. I remember reading this book. I remember where I was when I read it. I remember crying. I remember loving Bone, the main character, by the end. And this girl was like from a trailer park in South Carolina, this white girl that I would have had no cause to have any kind of relationship with. Our worlds were miles apart, but she was my homegirl. I cared about her by the end of this book. Have you had that experience when you just go in and you care, you cry for that person? That's what she wanted. She wanted to create that emotive experience if we didn't naturally have it because we were too distant from one another. But she made this one caution. She said, many popular works entice the reader through crude sentiments and the evocation of fantasies that may involve the dehumanization of others. And I said, oh, there it is again. And that time I thought, the minstrel show. So the oldest tradition in the United States, the first kind of entertainment we ever had was the minstrel show. The first popular dance shows were minstrel shows. So everybody, what was coming to town? The minstrel show. You get all decked out, you go to the minstrel show. It travels from town to do what? To make fun of black people, to have them shucking and jiving. It's a dance show, it's a tap show, it's a coon show. And it was our first entertainment craze. And I don't think we've ever really gotten over it. We have all these different kind of caricatures of what it means to be black. There's Sambo, oh yes, massa. The one who really is kind of intellectually dull and needs a master to take care of him. Or Jim Crow, we know where that language, now we know where that language comes from. Or Zip Coon, he's that uppity Negro. He's smart, but he's uppity. Which I really think is what's happening to Cam Newton. He's a little bit too uppity. What? Touchdown. They don't like that. It's a little too Zip Coon. Jezebel, the kind of oversexed black woman with a great big butt. Kizzy, that kind of quintessential house slave. And this, again, I mention this not because it's dated, but because it's not.
In 2013, Miley Cyrus twerks and uses black women as props. And then in 2014, in one of her videos called This Is How We Do, Katy Perry uses ebonics and hand gestures and eats watermelons while wearing cornrows before cutting inexplicably to a picture of Aretha Franklin.
I see you.
Okay. Let's remember we're calling in, okay? We're calling in. If you've got Miley Cyrus and Katy Perry on your, personal device, I'm not hating. We're calling in. We have to remember that dance has often been an across-the-aisle experience, so we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater here. We just want to be more careful, more intentional about the way that we're doing this. So I teach kinetic African American history. That's what I do. So I've been teaching about segregation. So we were learning about swing dance, and rock and roll, because that was the music, some of the music, I can go earlier to jazz, that really challenged and really made some more headway in terms of combating segregation in this country. Because you got somebody like Little Richard, who I learned a lot about this year, he was the kind of focus of my study this year, who plays this music, and black kids are buying it, and white kids are buying it, and then they show up at a venue to hear him play, and there's a rope down the middle. And there's a sign literally on this side that says colored, and there's a sign over there that says white. And there's police there to enforce that. But you know what? Tutti frutti, over, they just knock the rope down and just all start dancing together. And then sometimes shows get shut down. Sometimes, police get out there and get involved. But what I noticed was that everyone was willing to cross the rope, because dance, music, is one of those across the aisle experiences. Now, of course, I could say more about this. I could unpack that. Is this, is it a kind of exotic thing? You want to get over there because there's something exotic about the other side. It's not really, you're not really understanding the humanity. You want to get over there because you put it up on a pedestal so high you want to be accepted by that group. So there's more to say there. But again, let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. We see that with dance, with art, there is a way to get people who were like this. Now, if we can just, now that they're like this, get them to maybe talk about respect, talk about why they're there, then we've really made a difference. So we have to ask some of those questions that are hard to ask and maybe make us feel defensive, like in a culture obsessed with the villainy of black bodies, why are we so cool? Why is the opportunity to inhabit or share our kinetic experience so coveted? The fine arts study of black dance is a way to unpack this question. We have to make sure that our universities are doing that. The fine art study of black dance is not just entertainment dance. Entertainment is about a flat caricature. The fine art study of something is about art. It's about humanity. We have to start looking at black dance as more than entertainment, and not just a dancing black person, black dance. I hope we understand the difference. Dance that emerges out of a community, that communicates a culture, that has a history and a lived experience. So in our kinetic work for today, our goal was to create something that Martha Nussbaum could say, yes, this helps people to understand the humanity of those they may not know. I've aimed to have the visceral reaction to black folk or vernacular dance be art at first glance, which speaks to the depths of our humanity. I wanted to add our unrepresented voice to the canon. Lamone, Duncan, Graham, beautiful as they are, emerge from a different cultural center. Like those modernists, I long to hear the sound of my own voice. Post-secondary institutions and their students can benefit from welcoming the techniques that we will present today into the fold of fine arts in order to demand a deeper than surface level or entertainment understanding of the black body. My goal was to inspire empathy and conversation rather than recreate fad or spectacle. I encourage those assembled to speak up that we might make room for black social movement dance in the canon of serious and fine arts in order that this important work might be continued. Vulnerability. Has anyone seen this TED Talk? Breai Brown? She kills it. So I'm just going to let her, I want to use her definition of vulnerability.
They didn't talk about vulnerability being comfortable, nor did they really talk about it being excruciating, as I had heard it earlier in the shame interviewing. They just talked about it being necessary. They talked about the willingness to say, I love you first. The willingness to do something where there are no guarantees. The willingness to breathe through waiting for the doctor to call after your mammogram. the willing to invest in a relationship that may or may not work out. They thought this was fundamental. I personally thought it was betrayal. I could not believe I had pledged allegiance to research, where our job, the definition of research is to control and predict, to study phenomenon for the explicit reason to control and predict. And now my my mission to control and predict had turned up the answer that the way to live is with vulnerability. Problem is, and I learned this from the research, that you cannot selectively numb emotion. You can't say, here's the bad stuff. Here's vulnerability, here's grief, here's shame, here's fear, here's disappointment. I don't want to feel these. I'm going to have a couple of beers and a banana nut muffin. I don't want to feel these. And I know that's knowing laughter. I hack into your lives for a living. I know that's, God. You can't numb those hard feelings without numbing the other affects or emotions. You cannot selectively numb. So when we numb those, we numb joy. We numb gratitude. We numb happiness. And then we are miserable and we are looking for purpose and meaning. And then we feel vulnerable. So then we have a couple of beers and a banana nut muffin. And it becomes this dangerous cycle.
Control and predict is what's ringing in my ears after that. I'm thinking Baltimore is a place of control and prediction. We're trying to control and predict. We're thinking about the external, not the internal, not how will this affect me, how will this affect someone, but just kind of control and predict. I guess my analogy for this is I've been thinking about how to explain this. It's kind of like a speed camera, right? We slow down when there's a speed camera, not because we care about the sanctity of life, but because we don't want to get a ticket. That is not the same thing. We haven't changed how people think or feel by controlling and predicting what they're going to do by putting some kind of external thing. Yes, people need accountability measures, but what we really need to get at is the circumcision of the heart. We need to see that people are changing, that people are growing and changing. Because we're thinking, oh, we live here with these people instead of there with those people, not because of something personal, but to control and predict. I mean, I need to resell my house. I care about my property value. This is an investment. We're taking it away from the internal implications and just dealing with those external things. Controlling and predicting. We numb, we move, we avoid. But as Brown so eloquently explains, we can't avoid the bad stuff without missing the good. Maybe that's why we only know the bad stuff about each other. Because we're so busy avoiding each other. We're so busy controlling and predicting that we haven't really made any space in this city for people to know each other in a way that they get to experience the good. You know, I did some work about this segregation of Baltimore schools last year. And I was saying to some guy who's worked in law enforcement in this city for who knows how long, and I was saying, well, all the black people live in kind of like, West Baltimore, they live over east and over west, and all the white folks live in like Roland Park and, Mount Vernon and, Guilford and Canton and He's like, yeah, the I. I was like, the I, it's got a name? And I looked at the map, I was like, oh, an I straight down the middle and the black people on the other sides. We've got the melanin majority there in blue, and we have the I down the middle. What steps can we take to overcome this avoidance, this numbing? How can we find the courage to be vulnerable enough to not only just keep building more and more toward the corner of the city to avoid having to go the other way? I think the definition of art can help us to scaffold our steps. So this is a taxonomy of art that I borrowed. In this definition, art gets divided into three kind of different subsections. There's art for expression, there's folk art, and there's pop art. So then I went a step farther and I tried to explain that, like, what does that mean? And I said, okay, well, art for expression is about your relationship with yourself, right? I can write lots of bad poetry at home by myself. I might feel better after it, but you may not want to hear it, right? That's my art for expression, right? I sing in the shower, but that was my husband that went, he knows. Keep it real. Okay, and then we've talked a lot about pop art, the world system art, right? That caricature, you can be really popular and a celebrity, but we might accidentally shoot you because, right? But what we need to talk about is that folk art, that relationship with community art. Because it's all there already, that fascination with the drop dance, with the nay-nay, the quan, dabbing, hitting the folks. All of that, however, remains entertainment or pop-level experience without relationships, recognition, and respect. That's where arts education and arts experiences can stand in the breach. Arts education is strategically positioned to play a role in breaking down harmful ideologies, building relationships for grade schools, secondary schools alike by implementing curriculum designed to examine Black history through dance. We can build cooperations between schools. That school over there that's all white and that school over there that's all Black, maybe we can just share the arts block. Okay, maybe you don't want your kid to go to that school because you've made a school choice not to go there, but just the arts block, just so that maybe we can know each other before, we have some choices that we can make here. We can use that educational time to do the much needed work of building trust and ultimately community. And we can do that through the arts. I'm telling you, when I teach, I teach swing. I think the thing about Lindy Hop, I'm digressing a bit, but the thing about Lindy Hop that started to do some of that integration work in the 30s, people had to literally touch each other. It's like you went from, we're segregated, you live in your side of town, you live my side of the town. Not only are we together in the same space, we're going to touch. We're going to be on one accord. We're going to move to the music together. We're going to make sense to this complicated jazz rhythm together. If we can do that in our grade schools, in our universities, we can really make some headway in terms of building relationships with people who are really just so alienated from one another. Finally, vision. Oh no, I'm going to hold it here for a second. So pop dancers are not known for their lasting quality, right? Though the Madison, who's heard of the Madison? It was once a wildly popular dance, but I doubt many of us know a single step. I tried to learn it. I watched Hairspray and they were doing the Madison. I was trying to learn it because I heard it was really popular. I was curious. But these are the things that we call fads, right? It doesn't have any lasting importance or quality. And that's how we've been treating Black arts to this point. It's just a fad. Everything that comes out of the Black body is a fad. Out of our own imagination, it's a fad to be gone. But folk dances are timeless. They carry the history of a people. When you think Spain, you think flamenco. Or you think flamenco, you think Spain. We think hula, you think Hawaii, because it contains the history of a people. That's why b-boying, you might know the term breakdancing, but b-boying, b-girling is practiced worldwide today. That's why locking and Lindy Hop and vernacular jazz and our Young Cousin Baltimore Club are all major movements today. Why? Because self-expression is essential to the experience of humanity. To know your history, to know yourself. It's essential to being human. And that's what we're trying to do, is get away from the visceral ape, which is causing people to shoot people, children. We need to move away. We need to move into humanity. So long as all that Black dance, all that quanin and nay-naying is just seen as street, urban, natural, not to do with what's technical or what's trained. It's called entertainment, basically. It's clear, there's a clear message that the embodied cultural and kinetic aesthetics tied to Black history and experience are not academic or intellectual or deserving of the descriptor art. So this last slide, I want to just tell you one more thing before I read the slide. Our vision vignette outlines a model of education that resists cultural capitulation and makes room for diverse voices. We want to talk about how to overcome the divide, the questions of leadership. It points to steps for living together with understanding, respect, and integrity. It's something that we really did. We really did work together. We talked as much as we danced. We come to rehearsal and get all warm and then get cold, sitting there talking about what does it mean? What is our vision for how we're going to work together? We get cold just trying to work through the intellectual part of it. We want to offer it to you, though, as a small step in the cultural revolution that must take place in order to heal the painful divisions in Baltimore and beyond. I want to leave you with Claude Steele's thoughts. The basic assimilationist offer that schools make to blacks. You can be valued and rewarded in school and society, the schools say to these students, but you must first master the culture and the ways of the American mainstream. And since that mainstream, as it is represented, is essentially white, this means you must give up many particulars of being black, styles of speech and appearance, value priorities, preferences, at least in mainstream settings. This is asking a lot for too many students. School is simply the place where, more concertedly, persistently, and authoritatively than anywhere else in society, they learn how little valued they are. That has to stop. Please join us in the classroom, on the performance stage, at parties, in fighting for the opportunity to experience your full humanity and the humanity of others. Let's work to change our visceral reactions. Let's be vulnerable with one another and work together to define a vision for this city and nation wherein Black lives matter. Thank you. Thank you. So what I would like you to do, I'm looking at the clock, and what I would like you to do, we're going to have a kind of interactive interlude. You'll find an index card and something to write with under your chair. I'd like you on one side to write what made the biggest impression on you from the talk, and on the other side to write any question that you have. The dancers are going to use the floor because, as I advocate for my own humanity, I'm not going to go from standing stock still to dancing suddenly. I'm going to change my clothes and warm up a little bit. And when the music ends, you know that we're going right into the vignettes. Each of the vignettes is between 3 and 5 minutes. There's only 3 of them, so there's like 11 minutes of dancing. And we'll have one vignette and some questions, a second and some questions, a third and some questions. That entire time will be about 25 minutes. As I said, the dancing is like 11 minutes long, and then we'll have like 15 minutes of questions struck in there in between. But let's start with the interlude. Okay, so we're going to begin. Our first vignette is entitled Visceral. What is it? Visceral. The first vignette will be Visceral. I failed to mention earlier that one of the members of our company is hearing impaired. He's not in this group, he's in the next group, but Yusuf is hearing impaired. So when he comes out, I will introduce him differently, and the way you show him applause is like this. That is applause.
Dark brown shades of my skin only add color to my tears. Oh, that splash against my hollow bones that rocks my soul. Looking back over my false dreams that I once knew, because I'm black? Somebody tell me, what can I do? Oh Lord, oh, something is holding me back. Is it because I'm black? Yeah. In this world of no pity, I was raised in the ghettos of the city. Yeah, oh Lord. Mama, she worked so hard to earn every penny. Yeah, oh Lord. Something is holding me back. Is it because I'm black? Like a child stealing his first piece of candy and got caught peeping around life's corner somewhere. I got lost. Oh, something is holding me back. I wonder, is it because I'm black? Oh, somebody tell me, what can I do? Will I survive or will I die? Oh, keep on holding me back. Keep on holding on. Keep on picking on me. Oh, keep on holding me back. Keep on holding on. Keep on holding on, holding me back. I wonder why you do me like that, but you keep on holding me back. Keep on putting your foot on me, but I've gotta break away somehow and someday, 'cause I wanna be somebody so bad, so bad. I wanna be somebody. I wanna be somebody so bad. You see.
This vignette, and then we'll go into the second one. If you have questions, we're happy to receive them while I change my shoes.
Who were the performers of this?
Anthony Vergara, Sarah Sullivan, Charles Reprecht, and Breai Mason-Campbell.
Also, who was the performer of the piece?
Oh,
But I'm glad you did.
oh, thank you. I misunderstood. Yes, that was Syl Johnson's "Is It Because I'm Black?"
That's why if you're trying to write the name down.
Was that reference to what did I do to be so black and blue?
I'm sure I consider them as kind of a part of the same kind of canon of music. But I don't know that he was inspired by that piece. I'm not sure. Okay, if there are no questions, we'll move on. The next piece is vulnerability.
how I feel right now. Hey, tomorrow may never come. For you or me, life is not promised. Tomorrow may never show up. For you and me, this life is not promised. I ain't no perfect man, I'm trying to do the best that I can with what it is I have. I ain't no perfect man, I'm trying to do the best that I can with what it is I have. Put my heart and soul into the song. I hope you feel me. Where I am, wherever you are. I mean Action City. Tomorrow may never come. For you and me, life is not promised. Tomorrow may never appear. You better hold this very moment, very close to you right now, very close to you right now, so close to you right now, so close to you. Don't be afraid, let it shine. My homie said, shine your light on the world, shine your light for the world to see. My homie said, shine your light on the world. Shine your light for the world to see. My army said, shine your light for the world. Shine your light for the world to see. My army said, shine your light for the world. Shine your light for the world. I want black people to be free, to be free, to be free. Want my people to be free, to be free, to be free. Want black people to be free, to be free, to be free. Want black people to be free, that's all that matters me. 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 Black people unite, let's all get down.
Questions?
What did each dance member picked up the gun at one point or another? What did it represent when each dance member picked it up?
Yes.
Somebody now have red lady?
I know.
Yeah. So like originally when we started putting this together, I didn't really have like a way to relate to, gun. But then I thought about my younger brother, and not necessarily him, but the folks he was hanging around. He kind of got into a stint where he was hanging with these guys that he used to go to high school with, and I guess got caught up in the wrong place. He didn't pass or anything, but like one of his friend's brothers did. And it's because kind of the folks they were hanging around weren't really, the best influences. But that kind of made more sense to me, so that's the way I wanted to portray my interaction with that thing, I don't really like them. I don't like guns. I'm not a person that is cool with violence. I don't like war or anything like that, I feel like I'm a very peaceful person, but those things are around. Sometimes the wrong people get their hands on them, and they can greater affect several people, so you never know.
I asked everyone to interact with the gun in the way they felt the gun should be interacted with. So that was a place where people could really think, what is this? What is the role of this thing in my life? What's the role of this thing in this conversation? What is my role in this? You want to say something about me?
I took the perspective of just like any child that runs with the wrong crowd, violence just it can be amusing. You don't think you have that many options, so you pick up the gun, and as you can see by the display, all the murders in Baltimore, I was just acting that unfortunate scene out.
Yes.
I know you're out of breath, but can you speak a little bit on your process in developing your choreography, conceptualizing it, and if it's collaborative or?
Yeah, for this time around, I really did want to go this collaborative way. I think we always defer to one another because this is a teaching collective. Because what Guardian does is that we practice, perform, and pass on this kind of body of African American folk dances. So somebody came to us as, locking was their, primary modality, and someone comes in breaking is their primary modality, or Lindy Hop, or whatever. So if there's someone in the group that we can defer to in terms of their expertise, we tended to do that anyway. In this piece, though, I said, okay, I want to talk about vulnerability in dance. Go. And
Not easy.
That was it. That's right. That's why we spent so much time talking about, and I think it was a really, in terms of intersectionalities, because I didn't want to make kind of broad, I love the work Dancing White that we did, though I didn't like kind of saying, you will play the white man, and I will play the black woman. I wanted us to be ourselves, which is why this is so personal. There's pictures of my children, my husband, my boyfriend who was shot when we were in high school, It's personal because this is about where I entered into this. It's about my personal experience. It's about his personal experience and his. So when it came to making the choreography, I was thinking, well, what do audiences need to see from movement to feel like it's art? Sometimes they see this, anything that seems too upbeat is entertainment. You need it to lengthen out to understand it as art. It needs to be detached. But, if I look too powerful, it's not art anymore. Or if it's like an aesthetic of power. Because, it is powerful. I can't even do it. It's been some years. But, that takes power, but it's supposed to be a power which mutes something.
Yeah.
This is unmuted power,
Right.
But I felt like we needed to mute to communicate. Like you weren't going to see art if we just came out hard and unmuted. We needed to fall into the movements. And so I talked with Jimmy and Cody about that. We started researching different breaking groups that had a style that was more fluid. Because we thought that if we wanted to talk to an audience that wasn't from the same culture, that we needed to take a step toward you. And if we wanted to communicate art, we needed to work inside the vernacular or the aesthetic that would be understood as that.
That's wonderful.
It's the kind of dance that you want to bring into the schools across culture.
I do. It's so powerful. Everyone in Guardian has volunteered at New Song Academy in Sandtown. Jimmy teaches break there. Cody's taught break there before. He taught popping there. Charlie and Sarah teach Lindy Hop there. I'm forgetting somebody. Somebody's in here. Oh, my husband. Tony has Tony has volunteered with Lindy Hop. I just go on and on. But if we could pollinate the city with that and get all the kids together, Lindy hopping in this city, what?
Yeah.
Breaking in this city, we can do it.
It can be done.
It will take your support. It will take.
You got it. You got it.
And that's our kick-out moment. So we're going to go forward with the third movement, which is vision. And this is Yusuf. So let's welcome him to the stage with a round of applause.
He does not hear any music.
He's shy.
It blows my mind every time I see him. Every time. Every time. True. True.
our time in the space. So I think we're going to have to save questions for outside, where I think there is a reception. So please bring your index cards with you. We want to collect them. And thank you so much for being here.